If you haven't drawn for a while, or you just want to relax and have a bit of fun with a new pen and some ink, scribble drawings are brilliant fun. Here's a few examples that I've done before. I wanted to show you how I did this scribble drawing of a crocodile to test out some new ink and a pen that I've just bought. I've just treated myself to a new pen and some new ink, and I thought, what can I do to put them through their paces? And I thought, I'll do a scribble drawing of a crocodile, because when we were in Australia, we were lucky enough to go into the Daintree rainforest and see crocodiles in the wild with Solar Whisper. Dave, who runs that, was kind enough to let me use his photo. So big thanks. The pen is from Noodler's ink, and it's called a creeper pen. It has a flexible nib. So that's what I'm using, and I'll do a full review of it in a little while when I'm used to it. The ink I've got is from Diamine, and it's called Eclipse, which is a really dark bluey black. Before I get started, I need to fill my pen, and I need to just see what this ink is actually like. This pen is a piston pen, which means that it doesn't have a separate cartridge or converter. You twist the end and the ink goes straight into the barrel. You just, oh bother. Right, you dip it into your very full bottle and it splurts everywhere. Didn't realise that was going to happen. I think I'll probably leave that in just to show that this is real. That is so annoying. Right, and then just wipe off the end to get rid of any excess. Let's get that lid on before I make even more mess. And given that I have got this ink all spilt everywhere, let's at least use a little of it up to look at the colour. So this is watercolour paper. It's a knot surface. When it's diluted, you can see that beautiful blue, and doesn't seem to split out. It's a real purpley blue. That's very pretty. And so I can paint with it and I can use it in my pen. This is a fountain pen ink, so it is not waterproof. Let's mop that lot up. Hope that this is the last of my messy accidents. The ink is flowing nicely from the pen. It is a slightly flexible nib, so when I press hard, you get a thicker line. When I press lighter, you get a thinner line. And you can see if I press too hard, the tines of the nib split apart, and I think you call that train tracking or tram lines. So you get two separate. So you need to be careful with your pressure. So put water over the top and look, the ink moves and you don't get much of a line left at all. The other thing is with fountain pen inks like this, they're made from dyes, so they're not going to be light resistant. So this wonderful crocodile is called Lizzie, and that's entirely why I chose her, because my name is Liz. When we were with Dave in the Daintree, we saw Scarface in the distance, which is another of the crocodiles. Do look at his website because there's some amazing photos of the rainforest animals, absolutely fabulous. As much as possible, I'll leave this photo here so you can see where I'm going, but I'm obviously going to have to move. I'm going to use a scribble technique, so pretty much a continuous line and letting the pen have a wander. If I like where it's going, I might put a little bit of wash of ink on it at the end. Now, I haven't done this sort of drawing for so long, I feel kind of rusty. So I'm going to start where it doesn't really matter, which is back at those sort of creases. Don't start, say, with the eye, which is kind of important. Just, warm up, loosen up your arm and see, how you go, and you'll, once you sort of get back into the swing of things, you'll be fine. The difference between alligators and crocodiles, or one of the main ways of telling, because if they're side by side, I'm sure you'll know, but if it's just one, then you probably won't. The main difference is that you can see both the upper and the lower teeth on a crocodile, whereas on an alligator you can only see the upper teeth, I think. Or maybe you can only see the lower teeth. Anyway, one set of teeth. I am really scribbling here, as you can see, and letting the pen do some work. And I am holding it possibly further up the barrel than I would if I was writing. And crocodiles are the most amazing animals, just wonderful, and so under threat from us. Obviously they are absolutely the top of the food chain, and then along we come. We don't like the fact that they're scary, and they will totally attack if they get the opportunity, and they're just being crocodiles, and we just don't really seem to like that, and they are under total threat, both from habitat and from plain stupidity. If you ever have the opportunity to see them, go and just see how amazing they are. The paper I'm using here is watercolour paper. It's £140. It's sort of got a knocked surface, and I'm using that because in case I want to add water at the end, I happen to have this sort of longer format left over from another project, so I thought, oh, that's a useful piece of paper. And say, if you haven't drawn for a while and you're feeling a bit sort of tight and you don't know what to do, then this sort of scribble drawing can be very, very enjoyable because it's incredibly forgiving. Who's going to tell what the right and the wrong of this particular line is? If you're enjoying this, I've also done scribble drawings of a rhinoceros and an elephant, and I did those with a dip pen. So with a dip pen, obviously you need to stop every so often, so it's harder to do a continuous line, but I used a glass dip pen on those, which actually gives a remarkably long line. If you're enjoying this as a process, please think about subscribing and liking this video, because if you like or comment or share anything like that, it tells the good old algorithm that everyone talks about. Anyway, that good old algorithm, it tells it that it's worth showing other people to, and therefore this film will get shown to more people. And I do a tip or trick each week. It's always watercolour or ink, water related media, and there's all sorts, so it'd be lovely if you're enjoying it. At this point you're probably looking and thinking, well, that's a right old mess, but stick around and let's hope we'll manage to redeem it. So I'm coming back over here, and so I'm just keeping that line moving as I go. So with this scribble type format or technique, say don't worry if you do a wrong mark, because you can just put the right one in. And if you're finding it really hard to be loose and scribbly, hold it further up. I've always mentioned that. And the other thing you can do, if you feel yourself getting all a bit tight and not using your shoulder and you want to loosen that, is just do a random mark every so often. Just come outside of your drawing and just do a random mark, and that will sort of loosen your whole arm up, and you will find the rest of your marks really benefit. Now I'm going to start holding it a little bit more down the bottom, because I do want to get this eye a little bit more precise. I don't want it to be tight because it would look really weird if it was really precise against the scribble, but I do want that, because we always look at the eye, so I do want that to work. It's quite a shadow across the top of the eye. Got those wrinkles. We've got smaller marks here, so let's do smaller, and then we can come on down here. See what happens there. For bumps, I think, and I don't know a massive amount about crocodiles, and I'll obviously need to find out more, but I think they have sensors on their noses that are sort of more sensitive, or as sensitive as our fingers, our fingerprints. So you may have noticed there, I'm just elongating its nose, and I felt that I hadn't done that quite long enough. I did do a little pencil under drawing before I started to get my proportions right, but maybe I didn't get those right. I'm not going to put in the reflection. If you look at the original of the photo, there is a lot of reflection going on, but given the amount of time we've got here, I don't think I'll put that in. So when we were in Australia, there was a dreadful case. A man was up in the Daintree rainforest on the next river up from the actual Daintree, which is the river we went on. And for some unknown reason, he decided he was going paddling in the river. Now, there are signs everywhere to be crocodile aware, to stay back from the river. You meant to stay, I think it's about 5 meters away, because crocodiles can jump. They can move pretty quickly when they want to. And remember, they're only doing what crocodiles do. They sort of lurk and look for unwitting prey. And this man, for some bizarre reason, I'll just interrupt the story. I'm doing some smaller marks to get some of shadow around some of these brilliant teeth. Anyway, this guy decided that he was going to go paddling in this river, and he wasn't he was a tourist. He wasn't from Queensland. I think he was from the Northern Territory, so they have crocodiles up there, so can't even give him ignorance. And he had his dog with him. He set up his phone, which makes me think that it was deliberate, and he was hoping that something would happen and he could be a hero. That's just my interpretation. I do not know. Set up his phone to film him as he paddled in the river, with which a crocodile pounced, attacked, bit him. The dog tried to save his master, went in to attack, and the dog was eaten, which was, just dreadful. So this man's stupidity, it's like he took his dog for a walk across the motorway and it got run over. It's as culpable as that. But also, then of course, everyone got very upset. Oh, it's a crocodile attack, blah, 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 as they would. And they went out and hunted and shot the crocodile. So this man's stupidity got 2 innocent animals killed. His dog, which was found indeed in the stomach of the crocodile, and the crocodile. Because the crocodile was just doing what a crocodile does. It was this man who'd come into his territory and had, just taken no notice of all the warnings, and resulted in the deaths of 2 animals. Now, I don't know what happened, because we left Australia at that point, so whether the man was prosecuted or not, I don't know, because frankly I think he should be. If you think about it, say if you or I took our dog and decided to go and walk across the motorway with our dog, and it got run over, the driver of the car that ran it over wouldn't be shot. The car was doing what a car does. It's driving down the road. Just interrupting again, I'm doing slightly different marks here, a bit more sort of figure of 8, just to get a slightly different texture on the sort of skin down here near the water. So yeah, I mean the driver wouldn't be shocked for doing what a driver does, and the person would, I'm sure, be prosecuted for endangerment, etc. Whereas, you know, in people have such a fear of crocodiles that not quite any excuse, but it does seem a bit any excuse to prosecute and get rid of the crocodiles. So I was horrified to hear this story, and you know, I'm a tourist that's never been in crocodile country before, but I can read signs, I can read books, I can read all the warnings before I get there, I can listen, and I just don't know what was going on there. The more dense your marks are, the darker they'll be. I'm not particularly using the pressure on this because I'm using a continuous line. So, but if I do press a little harder, I'm going to get darker marks because this is a flexible nib. So remember, it gets wider. Might be quite fun to do a few more sort of proper crocodile skin type marks, squarer marks round the back here. Again, just looking and observing and seeing what's going on. And I'm sort of doing them slightly rectangularly, if that's such a word. But actually, that's more of a lozenge shape, so that again is quite nice to do some of these marks and just vary the shapes. So if you're not sure that you've built up enough density of the marks, squint at your work and see how much, what stands out as a dark area and which stand out as light. And you could totally leave it like that if you want, because what you've done is loosened up your arm, you've loosened up your eye and getting it really travelling round. So this can be a super way of just preparing to do a full painting or something like that. But what I think would be fun to help me explore this ink a bit more is to get some clean water and a brush. Don't want it to go bananas, so let's just check how much is going to move on a non-important bit. See, to blend it a little. I don't want all the lines to go, so if needs be, use a bit of kitchen towel and just blend that, making sure there's not too much water on your brush so that you don't just end up with a mushy puddle. Maybe come round some of these teeth, particularly these larger ones here. Won't go round them all because I think that would rather defeat the purpose. And you could echo some of your marks with the water. So we had sort of squarish type marks with the ink. If I do sort of squarish type marks with the water, that's quite fun. And just do that. Let's join a few of those shapes. And then I'm just going to splatter on a little bit of water to get some random marks. And of course, if you wanted some random inky marks, you can always pick up a bit of ink from your pen with your wet brush and just get paler, sort of bit of ink like that. If you look at it once it's dried and think, oh, I've lost some of the lines that I really liked, I wish there was a bit, you know, more definition. Once it's dry, of course, you can go back in with your pen and just sharpen up any lines that have got a bit lost, if that's what you want. I'm just going to, I think it needs that little area breaking up there. here. We'll let that dry and then just come back and see if I do need to add any more lines. So Lizzie the crocodile is all dry. Always check using the back of your hand. If you can feel it, if it feels cold, then it means there's moisture in there. And do you know, I do think I would like to slightly emphasize some of these lines. Say that I was a little liberal with my use of water. So I'm just going to go back over and regain a little bit of some of these lines. Just get a few of those sort of ripples, maybe like that. But this sort of exercise can just sort of take, if you are using it as a warm-up, it's just a sort of 5 or 10 minutes. If you want to use it as a finished piece, then that can be lovely too. The amount of time you spend on, oops, that's just my grating there, on the scribbles really depends on you. Just gonna darken in between a few of these teeth just to emphasize the smile. Never smile at a crocodile and all that sort of stuff. So I think that might just emphasize. So there's beautiful Lizzie, Queen of the Daintree River. A great warm-up exercise if you're going to paint something. It helps you become familiar with your subject, or it's a warm-up just to loosen up your pen work and really get it flowing and expressive. We've had fun just seeing what this Diamine Eclipse can do and what sort of colours and effects you can get. I've started to try this little creeper pen from Noodler out and see what I think to it. And you've seen what a mucky worker I am, but that's no surprise.